Usually then goes English
Again.
for the second time, but luckily today we've got a very honoured to have a quite famous guest here. Is the snooker champion of Goodwood.
You've brought in the greats, yeah.
Is there truth to that statement?
Yes, absolutely.
Thorough research was done to get that, that small fact.
Yeah. I won the Division League in Goodwood, which is, you got to look at the wording carefully. The Division League, what does that actually mean? Well, it's not the Premier League. I don't even think it's the B League. I think it's the C League. Yeah, but I used to play quite competitively back in the day. Yeah.
Was that your number one sport?
That was my sport, man. That was the goal. That was the original goal. The radio was the fallback. Radio was my backup plan.
Oh,
that's a substantial pivot. From snooker.
and these competitions, saying that you weren't in the Premier League exactly. Were they in a pub or?
No. It's
No, I'm just kidding.
It's not the most glamorous sport, but where you think it's like pool, it's snooker. So it's the more formal, almost like waistcoat stuff,
Yeah.
The big tables.
That was my thing.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Big in China, big in Asia. It's huge. I used to play like in the Premier.
Okay.
But those were the days.
Yeah. And do you still watch now?
All the time. I watch the World Champs. That's the one sport I watch on TV.
Okay, that's very interesting.
Yeah, it drives my wife nuts. She's like, "Why do you watch this crap?"
Supersport keeps that channel just for you, bro.
No, it's not even on Supersport, man. I've got to go online. Yeah, I've got to go find these ways down these back alleys to catch a stream like £2.
Yeah. I think we caught on something interesting there now. And usually we like to give the guests just a bit of context to the person we're speaking with and how they kind of got into their career niche. And we were wondering, like, maybe just, as you said, like, we don't want to get into it too hectically, but if there's something that you can maybe just share a bit, like take us back to just childhood a bit, because is there anything there that would have, like, facilitated you to end up, like, as a radio personality now, as, like, in the entertainment business? I mean, you said you were into the pool and snooker almost. It's interesting to think, like, how did that happen?
Yeah, there was nothing, Like, I had no parents, no family involved in any form of media entertainment. I was always, like every kid, I wanted to be a sports star. First it was the soccer, then that dream was shattered when I wasn't good enough. At the same time, I was playing snooker, because my dad played snooker. And then I had these dreams of going on a plane to England to go and play against the world's best, Stephen Hendry's and them at the time, Ronnie O'Sullivan's, and then I wasn't good enough either, sadly. The guy that was the best in South Africa, he won the All Africa Champs, he won everything. He went to the UK, and he was about 20 at the time, and he was getting beaten by 12-year-olds, and he realised, it's another level over there.
So you didn't want that for your own life.
So he came back, and I think he sells water pumps now. So my backup plan was better than his one. Yeah.
So hopefully you won't listen to this episode.
No.
So I was wondering, when did the penny drop that I'm not going to be good enough at snooker, and that transition from there to what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
How did that kind of come about?
Well, it was one of those things where at school I was always in trouble. I was always, I never did homework. I used to ride a motorbike to school, so I was always late. And with being late, we'd always get lashed. And it was pretty much from realizing I'm not going to be a snooker star, then my headmaster actually planted a seed, because I was always in his office in high school, and I was trying to wiggle my way out of things, and I used to do it actually quite successfully. And then he said to me, you know what? The one day he said, I'll talk a bargain with you here. All right, I'm not going to lash you, because I used to end up being the spokesperson. So like every day, like 17 guys hadn't done their homework, So we were all outside the principal or the HOD's office. We were all going to get caned. And then I was just so good at getting us off, or getting myself off. I would be the nominated speaker, the negotiator, and I'd get them all off, you know. And then the headmaster said, okay, I'll talk a deal with you, all right? So what, if you join the debating team, you won't get lashed today. He said, because you're very good at debating. So, and I was like, oh, that's like a nerd thing, you know. And then I did it and I actually enjoyed it. And then, but it was very short-lived. And then I thought, well, my guidance counsellor, a guy called Mr. Parodies, he said to me, you know, you're like in standard 8, grade 10 at the time, and they're starting to plot you on your path, choosing subjects, what you want to do. He said, you'd make a good lawyer. So I was like, yeah. And then the movie The Firm came out with Tom Cruise. And I watched that and I was like, this is what I want to be. I want to be a lawyer. And then that dream was also shattered very quickly when, for one, I wasn't going to have the marks to get into university, nor would my parents have the finances to get me into university. So that dream was shattered. And then I was sitting there one day going, okay, so it's not soccer, it's not snooker, it's not law. What am I going to do? And I remember so vividly this memory. I was lying in my room and it was a Saturday morning and the grass was being cut and its smell used to permeate through my room, and I was sitting there and I was going, okay, what am I going to do now? And I always had a radio on in my room and I had the radio playing. And at that time, there was a guy called Tony Morell. He was doing the weekend breakfast show. And I heard him on. And I was like, wow, this sounds like a good job. And then I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm all tools in, head down, going for this, like a bat out of hell. I went and I was like, okay, what are the radio stations in Durban? Yeah, okay. So there was, it was RPN at the time, which is now East Coast. And then there was Capital Radio, and I was like, Capital Radio sounds cooler. I'm going there. And then I went and I knocked on the doors there. I literally got on my motorbike and I rode to the radio station all the way in Durban, and I lived in Pinetown, which was about 17 k's away. And I went there and I said, okay, guys, I want to be on the radio. They're like, so? I said,
you want to be interviewed?
Yeah. And then I just sat there and I said, do you mind if I just like sit in the lobby? They had like this waiting area. They said, yeah, you can sit as long as you like. And I would just literally sit there. And I'd see the DJs come in and the DJs go out. I'd sit there like the whole day, bunking school. And then the DJs would come and go and come and go and come and go. Next day, I was there. Next day, I was back again. I just loved being in the environment. I was just soaking it all up. And I was like, this is what I want to do. And I was listening because there were speakers coming out the studio. I was listening and I was going, yeah, this is even getting more and more magical, you know. And then the one day, the afternoon drive time presenter, he walked past and he looked at me and he says, but you've been here for like 8 days solid. He says, what do you do here? Are you waiting for somebody? This is like the longest wait in history. You know? So I was like...
Have you ever tried to get a passport or a driver's license renewed though?
Yeah. I hadn't had any experience with Home Affairs or government organisations yet.
So I'm so happy.
Yeah, so I was like just sitting there and he said to me, so you want to be on the radio? I said, yeah. He said, do you want to come and have a look inside the studio? I'm like, oh, this is a dream. And then I went in and he said, well, you can stay for the whole show. His name was Steve Bishop, still one of my mentors to this day. And then he said, do you want to come back tomorrow? Because what I did was I was like helping him. You know, I'd make him tea and then I remember I'm still 16, eh?
Yeah.
And then eventually he said, okay, well, because at that time nothing was automated, so there was no... Now it's all digital, so the music's all on computers. At that time, there was a music library with CDs and records. So the DJ would have to go to the record library, carry this whole bank of stuff. So that became my job, making tea and carrying the records and CDs. And then he said to me one day, he said, actually, I need a producer to do this full time. He said, do you want to do it? I said, for sure. And then that's how it all started. So I did that while I was doing matric. Wow. And then... actually standard 9. And then after that I was like, yeah, but this producing stuff is cool, it's a good way to learn, but I actually want to be on air. So he says, okay. And then I started making demo tapes, and then I was doing the graveyard shift in a short space of time while I was doing matric. Yeah.
You know, I think the two things I take from that's incredible is firstly, if someone follows their passion, what they're willing to do to get there.
Yeah.
Like you just waited, then you started making tea, carrying records, got the graveyard shift, and
For nothing, eh?
for nothing,
For free.
yeah, just
For
because
free.
it's your passion.
Yeah.
It's actually three things. The second thing is how you, like you spoke about this Saturday morning, how you just realized it, which is how it might come to you later or
Yeah.
earlier in life.
Mm.
And then the third thing is how it always takes someone also to give you a shot,
Absolutely.
and you need to put yourself in that right time and place to get that shot. But
Yeah.
people, like the generosity of people to give you a shot to follow your passion. So I think that's we obviously didn't know that story.
Yeah, sounds a bit like a movie, if I'm honest.
Yeah. But then at the same, there's another part of that story too, where I thought, well, at that point I thought, you know, DJing in nightclubs was almost like a stepping stone, which it isn't. But then I went to go and get to the nightclub in Pinetown, and I said to these guys, listen, I want to be a DJ. So they said, nah, well, look, we don't have space. So they had a resident DJ. And I went back the next week. I said, is the resident DJ still there? They said, yes. But actually, something's come up, and the resident DJ has a moral block against doing Wednesday nights. So if you want to play Wednesday nights, that's fine. So I said, well, what happens Wednesday nights? He said, it's the strip night. So I'm like, so I'm in. So yeah, it's I mean, the shit I did wasn't even legal, you know what I'm saying? So here's me in the strip club. Well, it was a nightclub that had a strip night.
Yeah.
Doing the strip nights on Wednesdays, and I grew up very quickly. I saw things that a 16-year-old shouldn't see. I saw things with pythons, baseball bats. It was.
Well, I'm not asked how they were used.
Yeah, well, you can use your imagination, but the Louisville Slugger, but it was, and all of that was for free.
Yeah.
I was never, I mean, about what you're going to pay me. It was like, I just want the experience. I want to learn on the job. I'll do it for free, which I don't really see a lot of that happening nowadays.
Yeah, I think we were almost kind of, it was going to come at some point almost like advice-wise, like how would you even think people start today? Because I mean, as you said, it doesn't look like a lot of that is
No,
happening
You
nowadays.
basically designed your own internship.
Yeah, I did. I forced it, you know, and it got me where I wanted to go. Whereas a lot of people now very demanding, and what are you going to pay me? No, these hours don't suit me. I don't want to work weekends. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Whereas, sure, I certainly wasn't brought up like that. You make your own luck, you know. I mean, and I've always believed from 20 to 30, whatever profession you're doing, you sit in the corner and you absorb everything. You ask as many questions as you can. That's 10 years of schooling that you're not going to get at university. You sit in the corner, you ask questions, you do as you're told. You are literally there to do the jobs that everybody else doesn't want in your preferred profession. From 20 to 30. From 30 to 40, you start applying everything you've learned from 20 to 30 on the job. And then from 40 beyond, you've got the experience, and now you're getting the money that you want. Everything comes. There's a time and place for everything, and you can't fast track it.
Yeah. So just thinking about, you obviously started at 16 with that whole 20 to 30 process.
Yes, yeah.
With parents at home, what did you like?
They didn't know I was doing a strip
I was asking,
night. No.
why did you tune them when you were 16? Like, that's Wednesday, I gotta go play at the strip joint.
Yeah.
For free.
No, you see, because the thing is, I had my own motorbike, so I was mobile, and a motorbike that I'd earned because I was already. See, there was another crime that I'd committed before that, because you had to be 16 to legally work in South Africa. I don't know if that rule still applies. I think it does. To take a casual job, you've got to be minimum 16. So I was 15 and working at Pick n Pay, packing shelves in Pinetown. And I used to get about 130 Rand a week. And there I saved up and I bought my motorbike, and that gave me my independence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my parents were never going to buy me a motorbike. They didn't want me to be on a motorbike, for one. They couldn't afford to buy me a motorbike. So I was like, well, if I want a motorbike, I must get it myself. You know, so it's just that drive and tenacity of, you know, being certain about what you want and chasing it.
So, like going back to when you started out now, obviously you say you got the graveyard shift. What would you say was your kind of your big break after that, that really like kind of launched it for you, where you felt like, okay, this is happening now?
Well, when I got on air, it was kind of short lived. It was 1993. Then at the end of 1996, the whole, you know, South Africa had changed. And then the radio station that I worked for was funded by one of the old TBVC states, because I worked for Capital Radio and was funded by the Transkei government. And then when all those became centralized again, the funding for that radio station came from the Transkei government. The South African government took over the funding, so it was like 702 in Joburg. Capital Radio served the Eastern Cape and KZN. And then in 96, I'll never forget, Paulo Jordan, he was the Minister of Post and Telecommunications, of which that was where radio fell under that parastatal, that ministry. And then he said, nah, we're shutting it down. We're not doing it anymore. So they shut the radio station down, also because they were selling off the SABC stations, the regional stations, like KFM was a SABC regional station, Good Hope was, East Coast was, Highveld was in Joburg, as was Jacaranda. They sold them off, and then what happened, we were all unemployed. So I then just randomly started applying in Australia, because at that time in South Africa too, all my friends their families were leaving for Australia. Mm. So I was like, okay, well, what's happening in Australia? I've never been on a plane in my life before, you know, never even a regional flight. I've never been on a plane. And now I'm sort of 19, and I just was phoning random radio stations in Australia. I was like, hey, listen, I'm a DJ in South Africa. I want to come over and work. And I just got no. And then one guy actually said, send me a demo tape. So I sent him a demo tape, and he says, look, not really for our station, because I was crap, I was terrible. And he said, but there's an industry magazine that comes out every 2 weeks in Australia called the Jocks Journal. It's still in publication today, just for the industry. He says, and there they publish all the radio jobs every week. This station in this little one-horse town in Australia has got a 12 to 3 position open and all that. So he said, listen, if you phone me every 2 weeks, I will give you all the job vacancies that are there. And then I started this production of all these demo tapes. And I just used to send them off one by one. And then one guy phoned me back. He said, listen, can you come over? We've got an evening position for you. In this little one-horse town in Australia called Innisfail. The station was called Cool FM. So take Cairns, right in the North Queensland. Yeah. Drive 100 k's south into the middle of nowhere at the start of the Great Barrier Reef. That's where I was. And I hopped on a plane. I used my retrenchment package from Capital Radio. And I bought the ticket. I flew on Malaysian Airlines into Cairns. First time I'd ever been on an aircraft. Was leaving the country thinking, oh, well, I don't know if I'm ever going to come back.
Crazy.
And then I went straight into living in a caravan park there. And then after that, I was there 9 months, but they said, you're never going to get a work permit for Australia. They applied 3 times and they said, sorry, but now you have to actually get out. So 9 months I came back and I was like, okay, what next?
That experience, I guess, at least. Then
Yeah, no, it was great.
The story just gets better and better, actually.
Yeah, so then now from having a South African demo tape, I mean, a demo tape is you record some links from your show and then you send that off, you know. So then I came back to South Africa, but now I had an Australian demo tape and I sent that to the UK. Because the market was shut for me here in South Africa, you know, no one was interested.
Not even with some overseas experience?
Nah, I mean, I was too young, too inexperienced. There was only a fistful of radio stations, and all these guys had experience. I mean, I'm going up against the Alex J's. I mean, there were guys that had absolute legends of broadcasting.
Household names.
Yeah, I mean, they were doing like the graveyard shifts, you know. There was no entry-level positions. There was no other radio other than commercial radio. So, I mean, now you've got supermarket radio, you've got community radio, you've got all these other incubators for talent, you know. So I was like, well, I don't have a chance in hell, yeah. So then I started sending tapes off to the UK, and then I got offered a job in the UK, in London. So then I packed my bags again, and there I went off to the UK.
And this gig now, was it like a bit more serious, or was it still, I mean, almost like entry level? I don't know.
No, I actually got lucky, eh? I got really lucky because it was a big station in London, Heartbeat, and then I was like, sure. Now, as I'm getting older, I'm thinking, okay, South Africa's, I've got no chance. I've got no chance. Australia. I've got to make England work. You know, this is my last shot. And then, so I thought, so the position that they had for me was only going to open in like 4 months' time. So I thought, let me go early. And the best way to learn the British culture, because what I found in Australia, they're very regional, you know, they were very sort of...
You're a Queenslander.
Yeah, and they were very like, who's this idiot, you know, who's this foreigner? There were no foreigners on their airwaves.
Sounds
who's
a lot
this
like
foreigner?
the Afrikaans community.
So I was like, nah, I've got to learn the culture. So I said the best way is to get a pub job. So I arrived in London. I literally arrived at Heathrow with a bag on my back, no accommodation, nothing. I knew in 4 months' time I was starting at this radio station. And they said, just get here, we'll see you a week before starting date. Okay. I got out of Heathrow Airport and I was like, okay.
Got some time to kill.
I can go that way, I can go north, south, east or west. I can go anywhere. All I know is that in 4 months' time I need to be in North London, where this radio station was based. So at that time in the UK they had this magazine, because there were a lot of South Africans that were going over on this 2-year holiday working visas, and there was this Time Out magazine that everybody used to be outside every tube station, and they'd say, okay, this is where you find accommodation, where you find pub jobs, you find all of that stuff. It was like very much a thick magazine for foreigners, Aussies, South Africans, Kiwis. And so I quickly found one of those. I'm still standing outside Heathrow Airport. And I went and I got a mobile phone contract. And I was sitting on the pavement where all the taxis are, the black cabs. And I'm sitting there opening pages and I'm just phoning vacancies for pub job, pub job, pub job. And on the third one I phoned, the guy said, can you come see me? I'm in Earlsfield, which is just one stop before Wimbledon, in southwest London. Yeah. So he said, come see me. And I was like, sure, I don't have time to waste because I don't actually have any place to stay tonight. He said, see me at 3. So I went there at 3 o'clock and this guy says, have you ever worked in a pub before? Yeah, man, I've managed pubs.
Classic.
I've managed pubs in South Africa, like the Firkin and the Raging Bull and all these clubs, and I gave all these names. He says, so you know what you're doing? I said, yes. He says, okay, you start tonight, you stay upstairs. I was like, boom.
Wow.
There we go. So the first priority was a place to sleep. So I found a place to sleep because everybody was doing backpackers and stuff, you know. And I didn't have any money. I'd blown all my money in Australia. So in Australia, I never got paid for 9 months because they said, I mean, they don't break the law like we do here. They said, we cannot pay you until your work permit comes through. We can back pay you once your work permit comes through. I never got the work permit, so I never got paid. So it was there for nothing, but the experience was invaluable to my career. So then I was on the road, and then I started there, and then I had great success there in England.
You learned quickly to manage the pub, I suppose.
How was the pub job?
You know, can I tell you something? That pub job at the Pig and Whistle in Earlsfield, I went on to radio in London, and I was there for almost 3 years. And I left the pub job for about 6 months. And then I phoned them back and I said, guys, can I come and do a night shift? I missed that job so much. I loved that job so much. I still, to this day, that was my favorite job from all that I've had. And I mean, I've been a labourer on a building site. I've worked at a butchery, carrying the meat from the van into the chillers. I've packed shelves at Pick and Pay. I've done everything. I've done telemarketing, you know.
Can you imagine you were good at that?
Well, you see, it's because a lot of the times, sure, that's a job for another. That's a story for another day. That's a hell of a cuck job, that, eh? And I actually feel sorry for telemarketers because it's punishing. People are like rude to you, you know.
Sure.
But you could see a lot of my early radio jobs, I needed something else to fund. Because I was going in there saying, you don't have to pay me. I will fund living in another way. So, I mean, it's quite an attractive offer.
Yeah.
For somebody with a bit of experience that can get the job done, kind of. And you say, you don't have to pay me.
Did you earn, I assume you started earning when you arrived at the England job, though? So
yes.
The first time in your career, you also got paid for doing what you love.
Yes, well, I was getting paid at Capital Radio. They were eventually paying me in the beginning, yeah. But sure, I remember I was earning 6,500 Rand a month. I was the richest oak in school. I was the richest guy in matric.
And obviously, firstly, shout out to the Pig and Whistle.
Yeah.
For Darren's
it's still there. It's still there. And every time I go back to London, I go there and have a pint, yeah.
And do you still bump into some of the locals there, obviously, because pop culture over there is that you very much have locals who come to a...
Yeah, no, they've all changed. I mean, a lot of those, like the locals were like old at that time, and I'm sure they're all dead now, you know.
Well, I mean, so you were there, obviously, you said for 3 years. I'm sure it was, as you say, a valuable experience again, because you were basically still quite like new in the career. And then, I mean, what was it then that kind of made you land back here? Because I'm assuming after that you came back, or did you go somewhere else first?
You know, like the UK, I always knew it wasn't going to be forever. It's a tough place to live, really, really tough. Living conditions are pretty hectic in terms of, I mean, I'm renting a room in a house. I had two, it was a 3-bedroom place. The 2 other rooms were these mad Irish guys. And you know, it's that situation where in the kitchen where you've got a fridge and my shelf is this, your shelf is there, and the next shelf is there, and they were scaling my groceries and stuff. So it's tough conditions, you know. You're not earning a lot. I mean, I used to commute on those underground overland trains every day there and back in peak hour. It's a hectic life, eh? And it just, I knew, because also in the UK, unless I was British and sounded British, I was not gonna get to the top of the ladder. I was always just gonna play in the small leagues, you know, because it was even so regional that they would even tell me, you're in London. Now, you're from South Africa. Now, somebody from Manchester is never going to make it big in London because they're going to shut you out. Somebody from London is never going to be big in Liverpool. Somebody from Birmingham's never going to be big in Bristol. You know, it's that regional. And they pick it up in the accent. So here's me with my South African accent. I got absolutely no chance, you know. So I knew I was only going to go so far. And if I wanted to really make a big thing of this, I needed to come back home. But I didn't come back home begrudgingly. I wanted to come back home. I was really homesick. I was tired of all of it. And I came home to nothing. Like literally start from scratch again.
That's incredible. It seems like you've almost for every step of the way had to start from zero, expect nothing, make your own luck again.
Yeah. I mean, I've been unemployed about 7 times.
Yeah.
7 times I've been unemployed with nowhere to go. I've lived in 2 caravans, 2 different stages in my life, and I've lived in 2 different garages in 2 different stages of my life. You know.
And then, so, I mean, there's obviously a few lighter points we want to touch on. But I think
I don't want to bring you down.
No.
It's supposed to be inspiring, you know.
No, it is.
It's not like, I'm doing okay now. Like I'm living like a lekker life now. Yeah. I've got a 3-berth Jurgens caravan now. and at KFC I always give hope. I'm killing it.
No, we didn't want to step out of it yet. I just meant to ask... so you came back for personal reasons than career reasons as well, but it's not like you had a gig lined up.
No, nothing.
Then
nothing.
you get to as soon as around 2000, you would have gone back around there.
Yeah, it was about 2002. Yeah.
And you get back here, and how did you go about constructing what I assume since then you've been in the country? I think. How did you go about constructing this career here, bringing it to the point where you are now? What was the next step?
Yeah, well then, because when I came back from the UK, I obviously went home. So you must know what it's like now. You've been Australia, UK, living on your own, and now you come back to your old bedroom. You know, still got my Pamela Anderson poster on the wall. And I'm going, shit, I'm back here again, you know. But I was never deterred. I was never disillusioned. I was like, okay, let me get after it now again. And
you were going to make it work no matter what.
Regardless.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I knew I needed to get to Joburg because Durban was pretty small and closed off. And I didn't want to be in Durban. But then I had a mate at East Coast Radio. And he said to me, you know, he was a producer, and then because I was an unknown in South Africa, I'd done all my sort of foundation years overseas now, so no one knew me, and he said, just come hang out with me while he's producing at East Coast. So we were staying. I went there to go hang out and just try and hobnob and have a few conversations. And he said, listen, just sit in the corner of the studio. There's a guy that he has to record right now for preparation for the afternoon show. She says, just sit here and just be with me now. So I'm sitting there in the studio, and there's this guy doing these pranks. He was just a guy that came in and did pranks for East Coast afternoon show. And I'm listening to this, and it was absolute garbage. Absolute garbage.
You thought, I can do this better.
Yeah. And then the guy recorded one, and then he left. And then I said to my mate, I said, is that going on air? He said, yeah. I said, but that's absolute shit. He said, yeah, he knows, but they've got no one else. He says, and actually they're looking for someone else. So I was like, I said, let me do one. I'd never done a prank call in my life. So I said, give me the yellow pages. So he gave me the yellow pages. And I'm just like, just pick a number. Let's just phone somebody and we just see what happens, you know. And then I phoned this guy, and it was so half-baked, this prank. It was like nothing, you know? But it was 100% better than what they had.
Yeah.
So he said, oh no, that was great. So he went down to the station manager, and he said, yeah, I think I found a new prank caller. So the station manager came straight up, and he said, that's going on air today.
Sure.
And he said, okay, I need 3 a week. We'll pay you, it was like 200 Rand a prank. So I said, okay, cool. But it was still something that I was like, what am I doing? I didn't want to do it, you know, I want to do a show, you know. And then I was doing that, but my eye was always on Joburg. I was like, I'll do this now, earn some cash, but I need to get to Joburg. And then the prank calls got so popular. Then he said, the station manager phoned me the one day, and he said, you know what, the prank calls are doing so well, he's wondering what I would sound like if I did my own show, you know. So I said, oh, well, I can do my own show. He says, what experience have you had? So I said, no, well, I've been doing 3 years in London. I did a year in Australia, and I've, you know, done Capital Radio. He says, who the hell are you? Where did you come from? So I said, no, I've been around. He says, give me a demo tape. So I went and I gave him a demo tape.
Which one? The Aussie one? The South African one?
No, London one now. So now I'm giving him a London one. So I gave him that, and he said, can you do weekend breakfast starting next weekend?
Jeepers.
So I was like, yeah, cool. But I still wasn't keen, because I knew Durban was you're going to hit the ceiling very quickly. I was like, I need to get to Joburg, you know. So I said, yeah, I'll do it. And then he said, because we want you to do, you know, and eventually their breakfast show host was a guy called Darren Ilbury. He'd been doing it for 17 years. He was retiring. And he said, because we want to actually put you Monday to Friday. So start on the weekends. But then I got fired, like after 9 months.
Why?
It's a long story. I was way too edgy for Durban at the time.
They weren't ready for that yet.
Yeah, they were quite conservative, and I used to push the envelope, as I do. And I literally got fired on one complaint. You know, one complaint. But then I was like, this doesn't mean anything to me, because I want to get to Joburg.
Okay.
And then when the day I got fired, and they fired me on a Sunday, you know, and on the Monday, because I mean the industry is big, but it's also small, you know. On the Monday, but I was doing well at East Coast in Durban, and then on the Monday, they phoned me from Highveld Stereo at the time, 947 now. They said, hey, we heard you've been fired. Can you please come and see us in Joburg?
I think that's
Imagine
the first
that,
time ever that's happened.
Someone calls you the day after being fired.
Yes.
No, you see, if you're getting fired for the right
Yeah,
reasons
that's what I was
in
about to
radio.
say, because I mean, you want to attract listeners, and the controversial stuff in that sense always works. So.
Yeah, so they said, when can you come? I said, well, I've got nothing else to do. I'll come as soon as you want. They said, we're going to book you a plane ticket, come and see us Tuesday. So they booked me a plane ticket, and then I went up there, and they said, The Rude Awakening with Jeremy Mansfield, already an established show, like 7 years into it, number one, biggest show in the country. They said, we want you to join and be part of it. And I was like, oh, be part of another show. That was a foreign concept to me, you know. I'd never done a show with a team before. And I was like, okay, but it's huge, and I can learn a lot, you know. And that's the key here. I'm still like, how much am I going to learn from Jeremy Mansfield?
Mm.
I'm going to be a sponge now, you know.
How old were you? That up 26?
This was 2003. 2003. So I was 20. Let me do quick maths.
About 20 years ago.
26. 26, yeah.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
And you get there, is it a case of, and as they say, the rest is history, after all these years of showing up, waiting,
No.
taking no pay,
No,
or
no,
is
no.
there still obviously a few bumps and hiccups along the way in the next 20 years?
I still saw myself very much as naive, wet behind the ears, still with a lot to learn, you know. And for me, being with Jeremy Mansfield, that was my university. That was getting my masters, you know, because I learnt so much from that man. And and then I took over in 2010, and that's when you say the rest is history. Yeah.
So, and how? Sorry, Willem, how was he? Was he with you? Was he like this young kid who's coming for me? So you probably are competitors in a way, aren't you?
No,
Or was
I've
he
never.
just like immediately mentoring you?
Nah, the thing is, I always, and this is a very important thing, is I always knew my place. I've always respected the seniors in the industry. And that was one thing that I would sit in a corner, do as I was told, and whatever he needed, I gave. And I was there to not outshine him, not that I could have at that stage at all. I was there to contribute, and contribute when requested upon. And so he totally respected that, and I totally respected my position. And I've always believed, you know, you can't fast track anything. I'm always kind of, without sounding too airy-flairy, you can't intercept fate. Your turn will come, and when it comes, you'll be ready. So I was like, I'm going to sit here, do my thing, and when it's my shot, it's my shot. I'd never ever tried to put anybody out of a job, never ever tried to take 3 steps before I could take 2. I just waited, and 2010 it came, when I was 36.
So, just to dial it back a couple of years now.
I think I was 36. I don't think I was 30. I was 34.
Oh, no.
Or
So-
was I 24? 24? Hey, my maths is bad today.
All of us, except for this guy.
Yeah, you guys are actuaries. Can you do the maths?
Only-
Born in 1977. In 2010, how old was I?
That's
33.
Your final
33.
exam.
33. Yeah.
So,
I mean,
well, you've had a full working day already. So.
Yeah.
for us, not being like, obviously we were in the Western Cape, so you get exposed to the radio here. So we don't get obviously 947 where you were at the time.
Yes.
I think for most of us here, the exposure we got to you and what you did was obviously the pranks and the
Yes.
CDs that were
Yes.
released. So, like, at what stage did that like come about? And I'm assuming it was the content from the radio that was taken and like.
Yeah.
CDs, yeah.
So like from East Coast, the pranks were so big. Then I just kept on doing them, you know. Then I went up to Joburg, joined Jeremy, and I said, "Hey, listen, you want me to contribute to the show? I can do pranks." And he was like, "Great, do some, and we'll play them." And then I started doing some, and then they became so popular. Then they were like, "Okay, now we need one every day." So I was like, "Okay."
And,
You know?
Yeah. And how much, like, to do one every day, how much prep time, and you got to think, you got to
Yeah,
have a new
it's-
idea every day. That was probably like
Yeah,
a bit
no.
stressful and time consuming.
Yeah, but the thing is, I've never been afraid of work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's,
That was in your mantra already to just do
yeah.
whatever it takes. So.
I love work. You know, so I was up to the task.
And out of interest sake, I was just thinking about that now. How did that like deal work for you personally? Like what was kind of earned from the CDs, was that your brand or was it done under the banner of the, obviously it was your face on it, but was it done under the banner of like the radio station?
Yeah, well, that came about because it was so popular. Then the station decided, like, well, maybe we should release a CD. You know, like, and everyone was like, "What, a prank call CD? How does that work?"
It is absurd. I have this memory literally of I think I was like 13 or something. We were on this long trip. I was driving with a friend and his parents to their farm in Namibia. and this CD came up. I'm like, what is this? I've never heard, like, this
Like,
is such
what
a
is
foreign
it?
concept.
Like, it's not music.
And
you know?
I was like laughing my ass off by the end of the trip. And that's how I got exposed to
Yeah,
Whackhead.
but you know, the thing is that because it came about purely out of demand. So the one day on air, there was a caller phoned in and said, you know, all of these pranks, like, where can I get all of them? And then Jeremy actually said, we should maybe bring out a CD. And then everybody on the phone line was saying, yes, yes, yes. And then, like, within an hour, Sony Music phoned
Yes.
and said,
That's crazy.
we want to do the CD. And BMG had phoned, another big record company at the time, said, we want to do the CD. Universal phoned, we want to do the CD. Gallo phoned. So now everybody wanted to do the CD.
So you knew you struck gold there.
Yeah, and Sony had Michael Jackson. So I was like, let's go with Sony. And yeah, and then it turned out that the CD became the biggest selling CD of the year.
Oh, that's incredible.
And every year it became the biggest selling CD of the year. I mean, double platinum every year. Because I mean now, as you said, it's a bit of a foreign concept because like my domestic sees all these platinum discs on my wall. And she says to me, are you a singer? Is this music?
So you technically a more successful recording artist than Kurt Darren.
I wouldn't say Kurt Darren. Now,
That's
Kurt
a big
Darren's
name,
up
eh?
for that. Kurt Darren's got a much bigger house than me, so no. No, you know what was funny? I mean, Kurt Darren and I, we're great friends and we go way back. And how it used to happen was after like my third CD, and Kurt was on, I think, the third one with the leopard, and that's how we met.
Oh.
That was the first time we'd ever spoken. And so then after that we became mates, and not like bra mates, but just, you know, just
Well
you know,
acquainted.
Yeah. And then Kurt used to release a CD every year, and he was like top of the charts. I was top of the charts, and the Now CD of the year was top of the charts. So me and Kurt, we would talk and say like, hey, listen, we don't want to fight against each other. I just want like 1 week on top of the charts. Because what used to happen was we would, what you call ship platinum. So pre-sales from all the Musicas, Look and Listens and all the independent stores, we would ship 40,000 already. All right, so that's shipping platinum. You've gone platinum just on shipping. So we knew we were going to race up the charts because, I mean, you'd find most albums in South Africa at that time were doing 20,000. The Nows were doing about 100,000 a year. Kurt used to punch big numbers as well, you know. So I'd be like, okay, Kurt, hold off on your release. I'm releasing mine now.
Get my weekend.
Give it 2 weeks, then release yours.
Beatles and Rolling
Beatles and
Stones.
Stones.
Yeah. So it would be like first week of December, I would be number 1. Second week, Kurt would be number 2, and maybe sometimes even the third week. And then just before Christmas, they'd bring out the Now compilation, and then that would go to number 1 for like four weeks.
Yeah, the interesting read a book, and what we joked about the Beatles and the Stones used to do that, where they phone each other and said, "Oh, we're going to release a new single," and
Yeah.
they're like, "We're also going to release it
Yeah.
orchestrated when."
And they do that, because like especially on Billboard charts and the British charts, that's the most coveted position,
Yeah.
is a number 1. So they look at who else is releasing on that week.
And the name Whackhead.
That's a name that I've had since school. You know, at school, everybody's got a name.
Yeah.
This oak is called that oak is called
Yeah.
that, you know.
And it just kind of stuck through the whole career.
Yeah.
Must have done some pretty whack stuff to get the
Yeah, I
to
mean,
get the name.
yeah, like I won't say I was the most well-behaved guy at school, you know. But we would, you know, it was clean fun.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
we would, like the one day this poor teacher, the maths teacher, she had this Mini, she used to drive a Mini, So there were these 2 palm trees in the parking lot. So we decided that it was a good idea for about 10 of us matrics to pick her mini up and wedge it in between the 2 palm trees. So it was like perfect.
Testing parallel parking skills.
Yeah, but she couldn't get out of it because it was like so tight up against the bumpers. Yeah.
Speaking of good clean fun, and on the topic of the pranks, was there ever one that you? Oh, and there were lots, but if you had to, off the top of your head, name a personal favourite?
No, there's too many.
Too many.
There's too many, and it changes every week. Like the one that I might do today, for tomorrow, that'll be my new favourite. Because it's like everyone, I try to find something different. And I mean, like pranks, like you go like, Jesus, 2024, still pranks, you know?
Yeah.
Like, really? But pranks have become so popular. And I've been quite precious about it. It's not just phone somebody, they get angry, put the phone down, boom. There's got to be a story, perhaps sometimes a message, something very unique that separates them from anything else. So that's what I try to do in every single one. I think that's what's kept them alive, you know. But it's also what's also kept them fresh. But a lot of the time, it mirrors people's feelings, and it's that same old, you know. It's people love seeing other people in awkward positions, asking inappropriate questions or doing inappropriate things. It's one of those things that it's human nature. We're always going to love, and it's just this is discussed in that way, you know. But I mean, TikTok said to me that my pranks are the #1 most viral thing on TikTok.
Crazy.
Like regularly, and I'm not even uploading them.
No, that's the scary part.
I don't upload them, and you know
It's got
what's
its own legs now.
But it's like trying to crack that algorithm. It's like I leave it to the young people because they know how to crack that algorithm. I have no idea. Like, I mean, we would load one up and it's an in-studio look and you might get 100, 200,000 views. But there's guys out there that will load it up and it's just him driving in the car with the prank playing. And he gets 200 million views. 200 million.
Yeah.
You know, a guy with a jackhammer, it's just a jackhammer going da 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 da. But the audio, the guy's playing GTA. You're watching him playing GTA and you listen to a prank. He's getting 100, 200, 300 million views. You know?
I also don't know how that works. To be honest.
It's crazy. So you try and crack that code, you'll never. They know. They've got the secrets to that, you know, and it's I mean, now with TikTok and YouTube and shorts and all that sort of stuff, there's a definite formula. Like I did a thing with Nadia Jafta the other day, and she was telling me where your first 7 seconds, most people turn off after 7 seconds. So you got to hook them for 7 seconds, then you've got another 3 seconds to 10 seconds. There's these things you have to do just to get people to stick around for 20 seconds. If you can do that, you've nailed it.
No, that's crazy. On the YouTube analytics and stuff, they'll show you exactly like how long people actually listen to whatever you put out there.
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah.
No, the analytics is crazy.
It's a science, but you guys actuaries, this should be your thing.
Once again, I'm not an actuary. It's only
No, I've got no idea how that works, honestly.
Yeah.
It's fascinating attention spans, the content people put out there, certain stuff that get so many views and certain that doesn't, where you would think this isn't necessarily good, but this is. It's almost like illustrating how little, personally, I understand about what the youth wants.
Yeah.
So it's crazy, actually. So we do want a little bit of a backstory on the Tom Cruise prank.
Yes, yeah.
Because we kind of saw that they had been making fun of your pranks a bit.
Before that, yeah.
Yeah, and then you hit back and you put them in a massive loss. And you, I think the legendary quote of mine is that you only spent 60 rand on the phone call.
Yeah, yeah.
And they were out about 150,000 Australian dollars. So.
Correct, yeah. Now, I mean, Carl and Jackie O, you might see a lot of their stuff online. They're the biggest radio show in the world, without a doubt, you know. Australian radio is world class. American radio used to be the benchmark. little bit the UK, but now Australian radio's the benchmark for the world. It really is. So with them, it was, I'd heard, because of all the South Africans living in Sydney, they were saying, this oak's been bashing you. So I'm like, who's this oak? You know? Okay, and I can play the long game, you know. So I started studying who they were and all this. And then I've got a few sort of hacks that I can use. Like I had this program where I could I can send you an email, but I can make it look like from any email address I want.
Yeah.
So I started there and I'd research them, and the one person that they wanted to interview was Tom Cruise, and they'd never, because their show was called Breakfast with the Stars. So that was their whole sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Every day they have 3 Hollywood celebrities on their show. Could never get Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise doesn't do anything other than Oprah, right? And so I sent in from United Artists, who was
his agency or
the agency.
Yeah.
Like at that time, all Tom Cruise's movies were United Artists. That's film company. So I'm like talent manager. I found out who the talent manager was, and because I'd assumed that they had dealt with people from other movies that United Artists had made. So I got that guy's name, and I put such and such at unitedartist.com as the email address. I looked proper legit. I said, listen, once in a lifetime exclusive Tom Cruise interview, you want it? Oh, they back, yes, we do, what. And then I started the emails back and forth, you know, and I still remember, because of the time difference, I had to be at the studio at 11 o'clock that night. Because I had to do it live.
Yeah.
It's the only way it was going to get on, you know. If it was pre-recorded, as most of these interviews are, I'm found out and that's it.
That's obviously not going to get on air. Yeah.
So I said, Tom only does live. Because you guys take him and you edit him and you get a sound bite, and no, Tom only does live. And then you would have heard all that unfold.
Yeah.
But I've never been more nervous doing a prank than that, because
Stakes are quite high.
stakes were huge, eh? But I just nervous because I wanted to pull it off so badly for the vengeance side of things. Not nervous to talk to them or do it, you know. That's easy.
Yeah.
I was just have to pull this off.
And is it fair to assume they didn't bash you after that?
No, we're actually mates now. We're actually mates now, yeah.
Fair play.
Respect the game too much.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
But because after that prank, I was on the national news in Australia, on the
Everyone
TV
listens,
news.
so-
On the TV news.
You could have told them, you could have had me, but you sent me away after 9 months.
Yeah.
We were also just wondering, obviously it's different for you because it's on the phone, but we were just like wondering if there was ever like something that like seriously wrong in a prank, because I mean we always look at like old Leon, who used to run into some trouble when he was doing his like it's a bit more in person, but
Yeah, so I guess it's 2 parts of the question is so we're done with firstly if there is ever one that really like this just
It went wrong.
it went south, and then secondly I think this is one of the questions from the listeners was that if you ever have been assaulted because of your
No.
pranking exploits, because Leon used to get a clobbering for some of his pranks.
No. Leon, I mean, for me, my goal, because it's audio, you know, is the guy getting angry. But now, when you're doing visual pranks, now the goal there is getting angry, but he's also getting probably violence.
Yeah.
So he was prepared to take the hits, you know. And Leon and I were going to do a movie together around 2010.
world missed out on something.
And
But
then you might have gotten clobbered a bit.
yeah, so the one that he brought out in 2010, we were going to do together, and it was going to be The Master and the Grasshopper. And we sat down at his house and had quite a few meetings and stuff. But then, you know, TV is sure it's a lot of work, and I've never been interested in TV. I did Laugh Out Loud. We did 2 or 3 seasons of that, and I didn't enjoy that because I had a lot of creative differences with Mnet about the content, and they were controlling the content.
Naturally,
and I was like, guys, I wouldn't do this sort of stuff. They bring in writers and they bring in producers, and I was like, but that's not the stuff I want to do.
It's too scripted, I guess.
So I was like, no, I'm out. Like, we did this at the start of the second season. I'd resigned at the beginning of the second season, and we still had to shoot. I said, this is the last. I'm contracted to do this. I'm not doing anymore. For me, creative freedom is a very big thing. But Leon's a great guy, man, and the absolute master,
No, he is.
Yeah. What was the original question?
Well, I think you basically answered it in the sense that you've never gotten physically hurt.
But have some of them have
no.
you prepped and it's just gone badly? Someone's found you out a bit, or
that happens where the guy goes, no, it's you, whatever.
Yeah.
But my thing is with the pranks where no one must be left with ill feeling.
Yeah.
That's not my objective.
Yeah.
I'm not here to ruin you. If you haven't had fun by the end of it, then it leaves me with a bit of a cuck feeling.
Yeah.
Because when people get pranked, they become like celebrities in their communities. It's quite a big thing, which I've soon found out. But none of them have gone bad. They've always gone well, ended well. Some that while I'm busy in it gets so mental that I think, how do I even tell this guy this is a joke?
In too deep.
Maybe you just consider putting down the phone and never letting him know.
Yeah, it's like I've gone way too far with this guy. I can't now. And you almost feel a bit embarrassed to say, hey, by the way, it's just a joke, And he's like, oh. And then you wait for that reaction. But the one that went really bad was that resulted in death threats.
Hey, the cheapers.
Was the one on Eugene to Blanche.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's a tough crowd.
Yeah, that went horribly wrong.
And that's I think that's also it's probably been one of your more risky risky attempts at making a joke.
Yeah. No, it was, the thing is he was not offended that I pranked him. He was offended that I pretended to be somebody from the NG Kerk.
Oh.
And for him, that was his line. So I remember I pranked him, and then he phoned the studio back, which I don't know what equipment he had there, but I'm hiding that number. There's no caller ID.
Yeah.
But he phoned me back, and just after I'd done it, and then I picked the phone up, and I was like, no, it can't be. No one has this number.
Wow.
And I never forget when he picked up the phone. When I picked up the phone, I said hello. He says, "Ek weet wie jy is. Ek weet waar jy bly. Ek kom haal vir jou." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And I put the phone down. In that voice, eh?
Yeah.
That's what you hear in your nightmares still.
And then I was now like rattled, eh?
Yeah,
I was like
shaking a bit.
What have I done? Country's also politically sensitive.
Oof. Did you call him back and say,
No.
profusely apologize?
No, because then I went to Jeremy, who was my Kevlar, I said, hey, Jem, I just pranked Eugene to Blanche. He said, why the fuck did you do that? I'm like, oh God, what have I missed here? I said, and now this has happened. I was very nervous, but we settled it all, and he was just, don't ever imitate somebody from the church again.
And you knew.
So I was like, Never again in my life will I ever. I've been a cop since then. I've been a doctor. I've been a lawyer. I've been everything. But I'll never, never.
Like you said, you always know how to sit in the corner and do what you're told.
Yeah, ek bly stil nou. Yeah.
That is crazy. Wow, but
Yeah, but that was the first time I actually got scared.
no, even me. That would be a bit.
Yeah.
I think we've covered the prank side now quite nicely. Got some unique insight. To jump back to the radio stuff, almost, we were wondering, like, I've always been running this, like, how does your day-to-day look like? Because obviously we know you do the shows in the mornings nowadays, and like, what does that entail to kind of just the prep side of it, the pitching side of it, and then how it looks from day to day almost?
Yeah, well, you know, I used to, in Joburg, I would be working like 18 hours a day. I used to be at the studio from 5 in the morning till 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Sure.
And then from there I would go and do a stand-up show somewhere in Joburg, and I was just getting to the point where I'm going, this is not sustainable, you know. Something's got to give, because now I've got a family, you know. So when I moved to Cape Town, I was like, okay, something's got to change here. I can't be working like that. I'd get home 9 o'clock at night. My wife's put, at that point, our one child to bed. She's in bed. My food's in the microwave.
Mm-hmm.
I come home, slide into the bed. 4 o'clock, I'm up. I'm out again.
Sure.
I haven't seen her, and I was like, nah, this is not going to work, you know. So I was like, the only solution is, because I need my own studio at home. So that's the first thing I did when I moved here. I bought my own studio, so I don't have to spend the hours at work, because sometimes, like, the prank was only going down at 5 o'clock at night, so I'd have to stay the whole day there, because it was too far to come back and forth, you know, from where I lived to where the studio was in Joburg. So I was like, no, built the studio at home. Now from about after the show, 9 o'clock, usually till about 10, there's a few meetings with things that are coming up. Can go till 11, sometimes 12, but then I'm home. 12 till 5, 6 o'clock, it's family time with the kids sports, with my wife, doing all those things. After dinner, the kids they bath, and then I jump into my studio and I start planning from about 7 to 12 at night.
Sure.
What's happening the next day. And a lot of the stuff, you know, you can only prepare so much, but a lot of it just happens on the fly. You know, like you know you can't want to do this tomorrow, do this, do that, but the actual how it's going to unfold, that happens on the morning.
Yeah, you can't really plan an organic conversation,
No.
so to say.
Yeah.
No, you can't. Absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is still hard work to this day for you, and long, maybe a little bit less hours in total, but you don't feel like you'll ever get away with not putting in the graft.
No, you have to, you know, and I mean, the show's been a huge success. It's number one in the whole of South Africa. You don't get that by luck.
Yeah, it's work.
You know, you got to put in the work. You absolutely have to. And I don't, because I'm a workaholic, I feel like I'm cheating myself before I'm cheating the listener, you know? Like, if for instance, you know, do a show and there's nothing in it, you know, I'm like, that was cuck. I'd like berate myself, you know?
Mm.
You know, and then that's the secret, you know? You want to be successful, you got to put in the hours. And you know, it's not just your 10,000 hours. I've long since done my 10,000 hours, but now it's the 20,000 hours. Because the thing is, the game's always changing. It's never the same. It's never the same game, you know. If you're doing radio now, like you were doing in the 90s or the 2000s or the 2010s, you're dead.
Mm. And I guess that brings us actually to the question: how has the game changed since you started to now? If you could summarize a few a few things that's like evolved.
You know, the thing is with radio is a very interesting beast, because we were having conversations in around the start of the digital age, where what are the threats to radio? You know, what are the threats? What's going to destroy us? You know, like terrestrial TV as we know it, appointment listening or watching TV. Tuesday night, you're watching CSI at 9 o'clock. That's dead. All right, it's all on demand now. And we were looking at what are the threats to radio, and we were going, digital's a big threat, you know. But when you look at the beast that is radio, radio has outlived all of its threats over time. Radio has, its original threat was TV. They even made a song about it, Video Killed the Radio Star.
Yeah.
Because of course radio was there before TV. Now they go, now radio's dead. Radio beat TV. TV's dead. Then it was the record came out, and then they were like, okay, so now the record, because now I can play the music I want to listen to when I want to listen to. You don't dictate to me what I must listen to next. The record died, but that went into different iterations.
No.
Then it went to cassettes. Then it went to CDs. Where are they? They're dead. Then it went to MP3s. Now it's on streaming. Streaming is there, obviously, but then it evolved into podcasting, what this is. And then everybody was thinking, is podcasting a threat to radio? And as much as some radio professionals would like to think so, I say podcasting is the greatest thing that's happened to radio. And I'll tell you why, because it's really put audio in fashion.
Yeah.
People, and what I love about the podcasting space is it's tuning people's ears into long form. I'll sit in my car and I'll listen to Joe Rogan. He can go for 3 hours talking to one person, maybe 1 hour. He could probably edit that down to a killer 1 hour, but he goes for 3 hours. But that's what people are enjoying, the vulnerability of it all. They enjoy the ums and ahs. They enjoy the relaxedness of it. Not everybody does, but that's where it is. And what I love is, I've always been told by every program manager I've ever had, cut your links shorter. You're talking too long. And I've always argued the fact with them. But I've always been number one in every market I've been in, you know. But something in the old radio brain, programmer's brain, will tell you 3 minutes maximum, in and out. But now people are listening for 3 hours to one podcast, which has tuned your ear to listen to longer form stuff, which is what I absolutely love, because now that's what's dominating. But the beauty is and I don't see the one up against the other, ever. You'll see a lot of, in radio industry, it's us versus podcasting. It's absolutely not. Because podcasting is narrowcasting and radio is broadcasting. I'm playing to the masses. You know, I have to appease 80% of the audience. A narrowcast, you are doing about a soccer podcast.
Yeah.
And everyone's coming for the same purpose, you know. And the one thing is, the beauty about radio is radio's always been, it's always been free, easily accessible. And the only, you see where I believe digital, where because radio is now bigger than ever, 94% penetration rate. So why are people flocking back to radio? Because You see, with the podcasting, is a lot of when YouTube came out, there were no ads. Then what happened? Then they put an ad. You can skip after 5 seconds. Then now they put 2 ads. Now you can't skip the first ad, you can skip the second ad. Now there's ad breaks in the middle. So now you've changed the script on me. You know? It used to be ad free, and that's what I loved about it, but now there's ads. Look, you've got to pay the bills somehow. It can never always just be for free. But the conditioning of the consumer has been, yeah, but this was always free. Now you've changed the game. Thing is with radio always has had ads. It's understood in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
You've already been preconditioned to it. So it's not as, sure, ads can be annoying for the person listening. Oh, some more ads, you know what I'm saying? But I haven't flipped the script on you. Because I haven't said we're free and then we're not. You know?
The interesting part is what I would also think is that, as you say now, people kind of have access to listen what they want to at any time in terms of like music and something like a podcast. So I would feel in my mind the reason people would go back to the radio is almost like that personal element which you can't really get anywhere else. Like,
and sometimes it's nice not to have to choose for yourself. Right?
Yeah, you just want somebody else to make the decisions for you. It's like when your wife says, you know, when she says we're going here for dinner, I don't have to think about it, you know. But also another important thing is where radio is so powerful is, I mean, in my house the other night I just was observing, and I've got this motorbike TV on the lounge wall, and I just have a look around. My wife's watching a series on her phone, I'm watching a series on my phone, my one kid is watching soccer videos, my other kid is watching some guy play Roblox. But there's a TV. There's no more shared experiences. There's no more. We can sit down at the office today and say, "Yes, did you watch the CSR last night?" "Yeah, I did, man. It was great. You mean the guy did this and the guy." We don't have that because now you will watch the whole series on a Saturday. You're going to watch that in 2 years' time. There's no commonality anymore. And the one thing that radio has is it brings that commonality together. It's that family sitting around a dinner table having a discussion. And people, believe it or not, miss that. They miss that. I mean, radio's always been that thing where people get to work and they talk about what they heard. Radio's always been that thing where, and I mean, we get this a lot, messages on the show where people, you'll hear them on air where they'll say, you know, I'm looking around me in traffic, stuck in a traffic jam, here on Frans Conradi, and everyone is laughing at the same time. That's a shared experience. And that's the human connection, which is so powerful with radio. And that is why it stands the test of time.
So a funny story about this, actually, this weekend I was chatting to my mate who's a farmer, and he said, I told him, like, we chatting to Darren Simpson Tuesday, and he said, every morning when they get into the tractors or whatever, they've got the radio on in the separate tractors, and they've got walkie-talkies, and then even though they both know, like, if it's him and his dad or whatever, or him and whoever working, they're both listening, the walkie-talkies are, did you hear what Whackhead just said?
Oh, that's amazing.
And that exactly ties in with what you told about the shared experience.
Amazing. Yeah.
So
and I mean, and that's the thing about the modern world is we living, without getting too philosophical about it. I mean, we're starting to live in isolation, and humans aren't designed like that. You know, we aren't designed. I mean, they've been trying to, like Netflix and some of these other streaming sites, have been trying to crack this code, get that, you know, communal, where now they're not releasing a whole series at once. They'll release one episode on a Thursday at 9 o'clock, you know. But then what do you do now? You, like what I did with Chasing the Sun.
Wait and binge.
I'll wait a month so I can watch them all four together, you know. So we cracking the code. We actually doing opposite to what the objective is.
It's very interesting, and I must say I was surprised in the way that you said that, almost like, because that was one of the things that we wanted to check. Like, do you believe that like radio is still going strong? But as you said, it's almost healthier than ever, which is crazy.
It's more powerful than ever.
Yeah.
It's absolutely. And this is not to say that it's at the expense of podcasting.
No.
Podcasting is rising at a rapid rate, but there's space for both.
Mm.
So you'll find a lot of the time is people will, if you look at when your podcast is consumed, it's more than likely most of the time midday, from there onwards. People are maybe in their car going, or at home, or even in the evening. The thing is, there's no time constraint to it. You can just boom. But the services that we put within a radio broadcast is the news, it's the traffic, it's all that sort of stuff that a podcast is not going to give you. Podcast can only give you so much. Everything's got to be timeless.
Yeah. I guess what ties into about, we were wondering about how you see the radio industry is, it's clear that it's adopted and in a natural selection kind of way, just taken on the challenges and came out stronger and stronger on the other side.
Yeah, let me tell you, radio has a lot of, globally it's a huge industry.
Mm-hmm.
And we are always trying to prevent its demise. So many times we thought this is the next existential crisis, but it hasn't. But what I've said, because I do a few talks for some international organizations, radio organizations, and I said one thing we all need to realize is the biggest threat to radio is not podcasting, it's not Spotify. The biggest threat to radio is radio itself. Because you look at, for instance, podcasting. What is it? It's a microphone, it's an opinion coming out of a speaker. When I'm doing a morning show or anybody else, what is it? It's a microphone, it's an opinion coming out of a speaker. It's the exact same thing when you really break it down. But what makes me choose that over that? It's the same thing, just on a different platform in a slightly different package. So, if you put out some good content, the people will come, no matter what platform it's on. So, as I always say, the biggest threat to radio is radio itself.
Yeah, if the quality goes down, the people will move.
If the standard of radio goes down, people are going to move on. So it's important to uphold the standard of radio.
True. On a somewhat lighter note, we also, when we were just brainstorming and having interesting conversations, we were wondering, and we put it into a somewhat interesting ways. We wanted to ask you, how does it feel to be one of the most famous, unfamous people in South Africa, in the sense that you're not going to be, if you walk into the supermarket, it's not necessarily going to be like, oh, that's A.B. de Villiers or whatever.
So, that's my...
Well, I do get that.
Yeah, well...
A lot.
I think after...
Are you A.B. de Villiers? I'm not even joking.
Are you serious?
I thought you were making a joke by saying that name.
No, I just pulled one out of the hat.
No,
let me tell you a story. I'm in New York City. And a guy is driving me, Indian guy. And he says, and I'm watching it. Now he keeps looking in his rearview mirror and he's making eye contact with me like this. So I'm like, so he says to me, where are you from? I said, South Africa. He says, I knew it. So I said, what? He says, it's A.B. de Villiers.
You should have said yes.
No, I did say yes. Because then this has happened. It happened to me in Dubai as well.
That is crazy.
Where a guy thought I was A.B. de Villiers.
So now he's just leaning into it.
But A.B. de Villiers gets the opposite as well. I mean, I look at a picture, I can't see us looking the same. But everybody sees the resemblance. So I've signed autographs as A.B. de Villiers. And I said to A.B., so here's the pact, all right? Because we don't want to disappoint anybody. So when people come to him and say, "Are you Whackhead Simpson?" he says yes, and he does whatever they want. Likewise, I do.
It's epic.
Well, there goes my question. Do you feel like it's difficult for you to move around, let's say, just every day?
Yeah, you're probably one of the most famous voices in South Africa, obviously. But how often do you get recognised?
No, I get recognised a lot, man.
Yeah. Well, you've been in the
Everywhere.
game so long and you've done TV and stuff as well.
I
Everywhere.
drive past your face every day when I go
Yeah.
past the studio.
Sorry, man. but a lot of the time, I can be a bit incognito. But as soon as I start speaking, then they'll be like, "Hey, aren't you that guy?"
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe
Maybe the Villiers. Yeah. One of the South African cricketing greats. Yes.
I think we're almost done, but I've got one, I think the last one, just for interest's sake. Quite keen to hear what are the steps people take these days to get into radio as a career, because we've heard your story, which is
quite crazy.
Incredible, crazy and inspiring, and just a story of not giving up no matter what and just knowing you're going to make it. But what these days, what do people do? What are the steps people take to get into radio as a career?
Can I tell you something? Walk this back 10 years. You would go into a radio station, the program manager. To be program manager, then station manager. Program manager oversees everything that goes out on air. You'd walk in there and there would be demo tapes, demo CDs, all over, with covering letters, packed. I don't see one anymore. I don't see one. Look, there are people that will send an email with an attachment, but the game has changed where a lot of people, where there's a massive shortage of talent. There's not a lot of talent coming through now, because there's people that they don't want to put in the work, because I can just go and do a podcast now. Like, you guys could have your own radio show, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's easier for me to just do a podcast. But you go, okay, well, when do you flip the money switch on the podcast?
Yeah.
Are you going to get a salary for the podcast?
Probably
How
not.
many people are listening to the podcast?
Yeah.
But you can do a podcast, and hey, for you guys, look, it's not your day job. You've got much more important day jobs that earns you millions of rands a year. So it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
For you guys, it's just fun. But for people that want this to be their career, the barrier to entry now is almost zero. You've got a computer.
But you need to put in the work.
Yeah, but I mean, that being said, there's 10 million podcasts out there.
Exactly.
How do you get noticed? How do you get discovered?
But I mean, that should encourage people looking to go into radio, at least, because I mean, if I knew this like 10 years ago, I would have thought that like maybe this could be a possible path, because like in your head you just feel like, no, it's surely impossible to get in there, because there's only like so many few famous stations. But I mean,
and who do you know that works in radio, right?
literally no one.
So it's like you don't really know how to get into it, like as an average show like us. Not that we necessarily wanted to ever, but that's why we're having this chat with you. We want to know, how does radio work? But it's like you have to bang the door down almost.
Yeah.
Like you did. You have to bang the door down almost.
Yeah.
It's not like it's like you go online and you apply and there's 30 other candidates getting interviewed. You need to put yourself out there and
absolutely
get there.
Yeah, look, it's not easy. I mean, it's really not an easy industry to break into. And especially since the industry has also evolved, where those graveyard shifts used to be, the playground for newbies to develop. Now from 10 o'clock, globally, radio is automated till 5, maybe 6. They don't put people on there anymore. You
I was
know?
wondering about that the other day. Thanks for answering my
Yeah,
question.
because it was just more cost effective. Your listenership is tiny at that time. So, in some respects, it's the radio industry that's scored an own goal. Because when I was breaking in, it was always my goal is a graveyard shift. Now, your goal, your easiest goal would be a weekend show at night, maybe 7 to 10. Already, that's still kind of peak listening, you know. Not prime time, but there's a lot of listeners out there at that time. So, how are you going to learn? How are you going to develop? When the spotlight's on you, boom, go, make it happen. You know, you need those graveyard shift hours to learn on the job, to know that not many people are listening. I can feel a bit more like myself because the risk is not as high. Yeah, so own goal from the radio industry there.
Oh, it's interesting take, but if anyone who's listening feels like at some point they're interested in the radio business, it does seem like if you shoot your shot and do enough of the legwork, there might be opportunity nowadays.
But there's also, but remember, there's other stepping stones now, which is supermarket radio. You know, a lot of them have their own radio station. You learn to a certain point there, then you can step onto community radio. You learn there, then you're ready for commercial radio. You know, so those are the stepping stones now.
Or in your case, you just need to get fired enough and then get
fired enough, be tenacious enough, and prepared to work for free.
Work for free for years. Travel everywhere we can possibly work for free.
Yeah, exactly.
And then eventually, the break will come.
And be able to survive in Australia for 9 months without money.
Yes,
exactly.
That's a prerequisite, and then also, prank Eugene Tablons and figures as such.
Wow. It's been an absolute joy. You've really, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to take out of this. I'm sure the people will love it. I enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah, I think it was, like you said, you needed to be inspirational. I think the story is it's good to hear a good story of old-fashioned hard work, bringing someone to the top.
Especially nowadays.
So, just thanks for coming to our very professional setup.
No, I love it, man. You know what? You guys started much better than I started. So
we have a flat.
Hey, I was in a caravan, exactly.
I'm sure we could have pulled this off in a caravan.